it's that we're this mixed bag. We got contradictions, and embody the country's contradictions. And so I do think that what's striking is right now we've got a president in the White House who seems to have embraced and embodied, in a way we haven't seen in a very long time, this other story. And maybe
does that make your story more important and more?
I don't know if it makes it more important, but I am glad that we are planting a flag, that we are hopefully creating a repository, a vessel through which people can be reminded of this better story. Maybe a way to think about the Presidential Center and what at least we tried to create is some touchstones, some markers, some tools for people to just be reminded of, oh yeah, this is what our democracy is. This is who we are. We don't have to distrust each other. We don't have to hate each other. We don't have to scapegoat each other. We could actually try to find common ground and work together to...
Now, this is not your typical presidential library. Obama made a bold and unusual choice to show America's full story. The good, the bad, and the ugly. The founding contradictions, the exclusion of black people, the exclusion of women, the Chinese Exclusion Act, all of it on display. Obama's message was clear. When you truly understand America's complexity, you don't love it less. You love it more. And in difficult times like these, that understanding gives you resilience instead of despair.
To do some good.
The idea of these two stories is interesting because America has been having an argument with itself.
Right.
We say one thing in our founding documents. We do something quite different in the way that we construct society.
Right.
And the argument that you're talking about and the stories that you're talking about, the exclusion of people of color, the exclusion of black people, the exclusion of women, the exclusion, the Chinese Exclusion Act. Yeah. These are things that we know are true to the American story, but they don't always appear in presidential libraries.
Yeah.
You decided to travel a different path. You decided to tell a different story in a different way so that you lean into that sort of thorny terrain around the founding contradictions.
Right.
What was the thought process that led you there? Because that is unusual.
Well, yeah, for folks who come to visit, the first thing they'll actually see is, in the museum, is a copy of the Declaration of Independence. And a pretty long description and displays of the struggle to realize that ideal that's embodied in the Declaration. But hopefully what they'll also see, even when the exhibits are about my presidency, that there were people who disagreed with what I did. That there was a lot of unfinished business in my presidency.
And you talk about that.
Yeah, and that there was something like the Tea Party that emerges during my presidency, and it's useful for people to understand where does that come from. But I do think it's important to ground what happened during my presidency in this broader sweep of American history. And as I said before, this idea that on the right, and you see this in the Trump administration, this idea that any suggestion or criticism that America was anything other than perfect is unpatriotic.
Is a suggestion that you hate your country.
Is a suggestion that you hate your country. Now, the flip side is, among progressives, sometimes there is this sense of, well, the only true narrative of America is this one of oppression and exclusion. And I reject both those views. I think it's complicated. As I said, I think it's possible to celebrate the founders and appreciate what they did, as well as look objectively and critically at how their values strayed very far from what they professed. I think it's possible to say that there were populists in rural America and the South and white America that really did believe in equality and justice, for white folks, and helped to make progress in giving more people opportunity, and not ignore the fact that that was to the exclusion of others. And that's the kind of complexity that I hope people get a little bit of a sense of.
You want people to actually marinate in that when they visit your center.
And the reason is this, because I think when you understand the complexities of America and the contradictions of America, I don't think it makes you love it less. I think it makes you love it more. And I think it also makes you more resilient, because then during periods like we're in right now, where for a lot of folks it's crazy and you feel despair and anger, that perspective allows you to then say, okay, we've gone through crazy periods like this before. We've gone through mean periods before.
Now we turn to the controversy that refuses to go away, the Iran nuclear deal. Obama's position is crystal clear. Trump pulled out of a working agreement. Iran expanded its nuclear capacity. A costly war followed. Billions of dollars spent. Lives lost. And now we are back to almost exactly where we started, maybe even a little worse. Trump calls Obama's deal the dumbest deal ever made. Obama calls Trump's new agreement a dangerous step backward. But here is the real question nobody is asking. Who actually pays the price for this back and forth? It is never the president's.
Further, the new museum traces Obama's rise and time in office. It highlights his accomplishments, but also documents where the former president feels his administration fell short. There's even a section dedicated to his work on the Iran nuclear deal, a deal recently scrapped and replaced with a new one by President Trump. What do you make of what we know about the deal so far?
I am very happy to see a ceasefire, and I'm hopeful that it holds. But in terms of what was the original rationale for this war, which was there was a deal in place in which Iran had agreed not to develop nuclear weapons. This administration, or a prior version of this administration, pulled out of it, which caused then Iran to develop more nuclear capacity. We've now fought a war, spent billions and billions of dollars, put enormous strain on our military. A lot of people have died, and it feels like we're back where we were before we started the war, except maybe a little bit worse, awfully.
I'll give you a couple headlines. The Obama
learned about not just the exercise of power, but the limits on your power as a result of the conflict.
There are no limits.
No limit.
I haven't learned that lesson yet. I know there are, but there are no limits. We defeated them totally militarily.
Beginning a conflict, you had talked about you only wanted unconditional surrender. And the MOU doesn't look like unconditional surrender.
Well, it really probably is unconditional surrender.
It is?
I think so.
The president's legacy has clearly been on his mind a lot lately, including when comparing his page-and-a-half agreement that he has struck with Iran and signed last night at Versailles with President Obama's Iran deal.
We didn't pay for it like Obama did. Barack Hussein Obama sold out Israel for Iran. Obama was on the side of Iran, not Israel. Barack Hussein Obama wouldn't do it. Barack Hussein Obama. So I say it, the Obama deal was a road to a nuclear weapon. With Obama, they were able to enrich very quickly. The Obama deal was one of the dumbest deals I've ever seen. I terminated the JCPOA. That's Barack Hussein Obama's horrible deal.
Today, at the opening of his presidential center and library, we heard from President Obama as he offered his own contrast with every other living president, Republican and Democrat, in attendance for that speech. Now, President Trump's absence was not surprising, but it was notable And it was certainly felt as the Obamas offered a competing vision of presidential power.
A belief in the intrinsic dignity and worth of all people, and that no one is above the law or beneath its protection. A belief in checks and balances in our government and an accountability that comes with it, an independent judiciary and a robust free press. A belief that our military and law enforcement owe allegiance not to any president or political party, but to the people and our Constitution. A belief in the peaceful transfer of power after the people have spoken in fair and free elections, when we encourage cooperation between nations, instead of trying to dominate and bully and squeeze every advantage just because we can.
The lies about your birthright, your faith, your patriotism, the outrage when you stated the biological fact that if you'd had a son, that he too would be black. Yet, you were unflappable at every turn. You were doing the people's work, rescuing our economy, expanding health care, ending a war, ordering the bin Laden raid, saving an auto industry, winning a peace prize.
As that was happening in Chicago at the White House, President Trump was awarding the Medal of Honor, joking about how much he also would like one.
The Congressional Medal of Honor. I wanted to give it to myself, but I was informed I couldn't do it, and I couldn't find anything where I was actually worthy. So here we are. You understand that?
Now, the comparisons between two presidents continued on Capitol Hill, with a significant block of Republican senators who have been sharply questioning the terms of the president's Iran negotiations. We also notably heard from the Republican chair of the Senate Armed Services Committee, who argued that the $300 billion Reconstruction Fund, in his view, quote, would make Iran's payoff under President Obama's 2015 deal look like a pittance by comparison. Surprising criticism.
To stay on track here is that every day he twists the dagger into Trump simply by existing and by being a success and by never having personal scandal. There again, there are political scandals, and I'm not just talking about the fake ones, the remember the tan suit and the John Mustard, all the stuff Republicans wet about. I'm talking about like the drone strikes, his desire to cut Social Security before he was stopped by Bernie Sanders and Liz Warren and others at the final second, and he was willing to make a deal to cut Social Security. There are plenty of criticisms of the man, but here's the thing. He pisses off Trump by existing because he was a black man who had the audacity to hold a job higher than Donald Trump and be proud of that fact and still be beloved. Trump's never been popular. Barack Obama is more popular than he's ever been. He's the most popular politician. I know he's retired now. The most popular politician alive, even more popular than very popular people like Bernie Sanders. He's the most popular politician alive. It's objectively a beloved man in America. And every day, Trump's reminded of that, and he launches racist attacks against Trump, against Obama and his wife, right? And you've seen the attacks from MAGA on Obama and his wife. I'm sure Barack Obama's like, fine, attack me, but how dare you do that to my lovely wife, right? The fact is he gets revenge by existing, by being one of the most loved presidents of the last 40 years, and by being a black man who dared to stand up to people like Donald.